Hi everyone, thank you for joining me today for another Healthy Cooking on a Budget class. My name is Catherine, I'm the Community Health Educator at Good Shepherd, and our class is possible today through funding from Wild Horse Foundation. Our recipes today come from Food Hero, and we're going to be cooking a couple fall-themed recipes, as it's October now. The first one is going to be sweet potato and orange muffins, just because we want to get those started baking. And then while they're baking, we're also going to be cooking a pea nutty stew. So let's take this opportunity to go ahead and wash your hands, clean up your stations, maybe look over the recipes, make sure you have everything pulled out in front of you, and we'll go ahead and get started with the muffins. Again, the sweet potato and orange muffins, I'm going to read through the ingredient list and we'll briefly look over the nutrition facts. So for this recipe, you're going to be making 12 muffins. Each muffin is its own serving size. And as always, you can find the nutrition information at the bottom of the recipe or online if you just go to their website. We're going to be using 2/3 cup all-purpose flour, 2/3 cup whole wheat flour, that's going to give it a little bit more fiber, 1.5 teaspoons baking powder, 1.25 teaspoons baking soda, 3 teaspoons of cinnamon, 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg, 3/4 cup mashed sweet potatoes. I'm currently baking a sweet potato in the oven so that I can scoop out 3/4 cup mash into our bowl. However, the recipe does say you can use canned sweet potato and just drain it. 1/3 cup packed brown sugar, 1 egg, 2/3 cup orange juice, 1/4 cup grated carrot, and finally 3/4 teaspoon vanilla. So this does call for a few ingredients. Again, take your time to pull out your measuring cup, a couple bowls, a couple spoons. I will say, for someone, if you don't eat eggs or if you want to try something different, I used ground flaxseed as an egg substitute. And it's just helping bind all of the ingredients together. What you can do is just take a tablespoon, mix it in with a little bit of water, and let it sit. When you let it sit, it turns into kind of like a viscous gel, and you can just use that instead of an egg. It's really good for baking, not so much for frying things, right? So if you were going to fry zucchini or eggplant, usually you'd coat it in flour and then egg, but you really couldn't substitute the flaxseed in that instance. But it is really great for baking. So I've already washed my hands, and like I said, this oven is preheating at 400 degrees Fahrenheit. I have my muffin tins, and they said just to spray it, but I happen to have liners, so I just put liners in. And the first step says in a medium bowl, you want to combine flours. So the 2/3 cup all-purpose flour combined with the 2/3 cup whole wheat flour. And I have that in this bowl. I've also combined the 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder and 1.25 teaspoons baking soda. So they want you to combine those along with the cinnamon and nutmeg and just mix it all together. Most baking recipes are going to have you mix dry and wet ingredients separately so that everything gets equally combined, especially when you're talking about leavening agents like baking soda and baking powder. You want to make sure it's not just in one slice or one muffin or one roll. You want it to be equally distributed. So I combine these, they are well mixed together. And then in a second bowl, you're going to combine your sweet potato, which I have not done yet, along with your 2/3 cup brown sugar, egg or flaxseed, and orange juice, carrot, and vanilla. I have also added because that's the fun part with cooking. I've also added some organic raw pumpkin seeds, just because I think it'll give it a nice crunch. You could also, if you want to use nuts, pecans or walnuts, even shredded coconut. Again, you would ideally do like unsweetened, so you're not adding a ton of added sugar to the mix. But this is my liquid, and the flaxseed is in here just gelling up. But once my potato is fully cooked, I'll let it cool. I'll scoop out 2/3 cup and mix it into the wet ingredients before combining the two. So let's take a minute, let this cook, and we'll come back. The sweet potato had finished baking. I took it out. I let it cool down a bit. I scraped out 2/3 cup of mashed potato, or of sweet potato, and I've mashed it into my bowl, the one that has the carrot and the vanilla extract and the orange juice. And I'm just trying to get it as mushed as I can. I don't think it's going to much matter if there's small chunks of sweet potato, but I don't want big ones. And I've also not included the skin. The skin's going to have more fiber, so that's your choice if you want to. It's just maybe cutting them up as small as you can so someone doesn't bite into a muffin and have a long piece of skin, sweet potato skin attached to it. But I would say it's fairly well combined. So this has 3/4 cup mashed sweet potato, 2/3 cup packed brown sugar, 1 egg, or in my case, some flaxseed, 2/3 cup orange juice, 1/4 cup grated carrot, and 3/4 of a teaspoon. And they say after you mix that all pretty well together, just to add the dry ingredients into this bowl, which again, we've mixed separately. So I'm gonna slowly do that. And we don't want to over mix it. We want the muffins to be pretty tender. And if you overly mix something, you're just going to help develop the gluten in there. So I've added it to this bowl, and it just says stir gently until flour is moistened. Just going in circles, trying to get it all combined. And I will say, if it looks like you need to add a little bit more orange juice, or if you want to add some water after it's been fully mixed, that's up to you. I'm going to see what the consistency looks like. Okay, so my consistency is pretty thick, and that might be from the flaxseed. Let me show you. Mix this a little more. So it's pretty thick, which might be how the recipe intended it to be. For me, I'm just going to add a dollop of water. That way I know everything is moistened, because I can see some flour, like remnants sticking to the side, and I don't want that. Okay, that looks better. It looks very October, Halloween-y. We've got some orange bits in here. I've got my green pepitas poking through. It looks very seasonal. And then it says, get your muffin tins that you've sprayed or that you've put liners in, and just fill them 3/4 full. And then we're going to bake them for about 20 minutes in our 400-degree oven. So once they've baked, we'll let them cool, and we'll try them with our soup at the end. Our second recipe is called pea nutty stew. With this, following this recipe, you're going to get 8 servings each. And I'm going to run through the ingredients really quick. For the entire recipe, you're going to be using 1 cup of instant brown rice, because it cooks faster. 2 cups reduced sodium broth. I've used low sodium vegetable broth, but you can use chicken, beef, whichever you prefer. A teaspoon of dehydrated minced onion. I've used onion powder. A teaspoon of garlic powder, or you can use 4 cloves of whole garlic. Half a teaspoon of ground ginger, and then 2 cups of medium diced peeled sweet potato or yam. I've diced them. I would say medium size is about this big, maybe a little bit smaller. But it will be cooked down. You can add red pepper if you choose, which I have. I've added some red pepper chili flakes just to give it some spice. We've also got a can of diced tomatoes, and we have no salt added tomatoes. Again, really trying to watch the sodium with soups. It's really easy to rack it up. We're going to skip the half a teaspoon of salt. If you want salt, you can always add it at the end of the recipe when it's in a bowl already. Half a cup of peanut butter. And the recipe calls for creamy, but we've gone ahead and done crunchy peanut butter because later on it says you can opt to add dry roasted peanuts. With crunchy peanut butter, you're getting peanuts and peanut butter, 2 for 1. We're also going to be using about a cup and a quarter of milk. I'll be using plant-based milk, but you can use soy milk, almond milk, skim milk ideally, or 1%. 3 cups of baby spinach, and then optional green onion. So again, washing your hands, making sure you have a clean space to work with. It has a lot of ingredients, but the recipe is pretty simple. So it says combine the first 9 ingredients in a soup pot, which I have done back here. Bring to a boil, then turn down to medium-low and simmer for 10 minutes. So you can't see it, but it is boiling. It is simmering. It was boiling, now it's simmering. And the first 9 ingredients, just to reiterate, is the brown rice broth. You need liquid. Onion powder, garlic powder, ground ginger, any kind of like spice, like chili flakes if you want it, sweet potato, and then the tomatoes. So after that's been simmering for 10 minutes, you're going to stir in your peanut butter and your milk. Again, gentle simmer for 5 to 10 minutes. At the very end, you're going to add in your 3 cups of spinach, and then top it with the whole peanuts if you have whole peanuts at home, and green onion if you like. So it's very simple. Again, I think this is a nice soup for fall, for winter as we get into this. Something that I'm going to add, because I think it will go well, is I'm going to cut up some firm tofu and add it to this recipe. And let's briefly go over the nutrition facts. So again, there's 8 servings in this recipe if you follow it. And the highlights of this is that there's a good amount of protein per serving. You're also getting a great amount of vitamin A. That's going to be from the sweet potatoes. Good amount of vitamin C, some calcium. You can look at the fiber. The fiber is pretty good. Sodium, again, we want to look at that if you follow the recipe. And it's also going to depend on the type of broth you use, and if you're using, how much sodium there's in your peanut butter, how much sodium there is in your canned tomatoes. But this recipe says with whatever ingredients they used is about 20% of your daily intake of sodium, and we just really want to watch that. But that is the nutrition information, again, available at the bottom of the page. But I'm going to let this simmer. I'm going to add my tomatoes to it, and we'll check back in. So I've gone ahead and added my 1 can of no salt added diced tomatoes with the liquid. We want to keep the liquid in the soup. I've also just added a little bit of tofu that I had. I think also if you wanted to add, if you have any meat, like extra meat, like chopped chicken or even beans lying around, I feel like that would go really well with the soup, but just, some suggestions. What I'm going to do now is add half a cup peanut butter. So I have my peanut butter here that is crunchy. And peanut butter can be really messy to measure out, so I'm just going to guess how much peanut butter is half a cup. But by all means, if you want to add it into a measuring cup, and I guess it also depends how much you like peanut butter. If you want to add it, if you want to make it less or more peanutty. All right, so that feels good. And I'm also going to add in my 1 1/4 cups milk. For my milk, I'm actually trying something new. It's chia milk. I saw this at the grocery store. I forget the name of it. Grocery outlet. But this is, if anyone's heard or eaten chia seeds, that's what this is derived from. And I just took a little sip, and it's got a very interesting flavor. It tastes almost nutty, and I mean, seeds, nuts, I suppose, have similar flavors, but yeah, it's not overly flavored, but I think it'll go really well with the soup because we're adding peanut butter. So we're going to add 1.25 cups with the broth and the tomato, canned tomatoes and their sauce. So the broth is pretty thin, but we've also got the sweet potato cooking, which it is soft. I mean, it's only been cooking 10 or 15 minutes, and because it's chopped, it's already pretty soft, which is nice. And they say after you add those, just to cover it, and they say uncover it and cook for 5 more minutes. So after the 5 minutes are up, we're just going to add our 3 cups of baby spinach and until they're wilted, which should only take 2 to 3 minutes. When that's done, I'll take it out, I'll plate it. We'll try it with one of the muffins that are baking, and we'll see how it goes. But I do happen to have a ton of peanuts, so I will be topping my soup with peanuts and some sliced green onion or scallion. But the recipe does say if you want to add, and it depends what your taste is, but if you want to add chopped cilantro or red and green peppers, they suggest raisins, which is a very interesting combination, I think. You can go ahead and try that. If you, or someone you're cooking for, doesn't like peanuts, or if they're allergic to peanuts, there are plenty of other nut butters out there. You could try sunflower seeds if you want something crunchy. There's also sunflower seed oil. I've seen cashew butter. I've seen almond butter. These tend to be a little more expensive than peanut butter, but if you wanted to try something, you could do that. I will say also, if you buy bulk peanuts, like at Winco, which is where I got these peanuts, you can make your own peanut butter. You just get peanuts and you put it in a blender or maybe more ideally a food processor, and you can add a little bit of water, you can add a little bit of canola oil, but like really not much, and you just puree them until it looks like peanut butter. And I don't know the cost analysis of that. I imagine it would be cheaper than buying prepared peanut butter because prepared foods are typically more expensive than like their whole food alternative. But I haven't looked into it, but that could be an option. Or if you just want to try making it yourself for fun. But anyway, we're going to let this soup cook for about 5 more minutes, and then we will taste it once I've added the spinach and it's cooled down. With our soup and our muffin done, it is now time for the taste test. I plated some soup, and I've added some chopped scallions and peanuts to it, and I've let it cool down a bit. I did also add some sliced garlic, just because I love garlic so much. So there are some garlic pieces in here in addition to the tofu I added. We're going to go ahead and try this. Super delicious, super flavorful. I'm glad I did not add salt to that because for me, that is just perfect. And then this is my little muffin, taking it out and put on a plate. And it is still kind of warm. Let's see how this tastes. Sweet potato and orange. I think that's nice. It's not too sweet for me. I think that has a nice flavor. And it doesn't taste, the sweet potato just adds more sweetness to it. I don't think it's overwhelming or, doesn't taste like potato. Good 2 ingredients, recipes rather. Hopefully everyone at home enjoys it. While you're hopefully snacking, I'm going to go through the cost analysis that's in the back behind on your folder, behind the recipes. And I kind of covered the stew, I believe, but I'll briefly go over the sweet potato. So sweet potato and orange muffins, high in vitamin C, vitamin A. The way that I broke out all the ingredients per cost, the total cost of the recipe was a mere $3.22. I will say when it comes to baking, you have to buy, you can't just buy a cup of flour. You have to buy a bag of flour. You can't just buy a tablespoon or a teaspoon of spices. You have to buy the whole container. So I think the upfront cost can be a little more expensive, but $3.22 for the whole recipe. So per serving, which there were 12 servings, 12 muffins that we made, it turned out to be 27 cents per serving per muffin. To me, that's incredible for something that could be even like a nice little breakfast muffin. You could maybe add some oats to this recipe and get even more fiber that way. Looking at the peanutty stew, good sources of vitamin C, vitamin A, fiber, and protein. Again, if you're adding in tofu or meat or some lentils or beans, it's going to increase that. The way that everything was broken out, again, we did have a few spices, so upfront cost of that is going to be a little more expensive. But for example, a teaspoon of onion powder, just the teaspoon is 5 cents. However, you can't just buy a teaspoon of onion powder. The total cost of the recipe was $8.22, and there were 8 servings in that, so it ended up being a little over $1 per serving, $1.03 per serving, which is, for me, I think pretty good, especially if you wanted to bring something to a holiday party coming up in the next couple of months, or if you just wanted to make these and store them in the fridge or freezer, it would be a relatively affordable way to make sure you have nutritious food at home. On the other side of your folder, there's a few handouts. I've included a handout on added sugar with Halloween around the corner and Thanksgiving and Christmas coming around. This is a bunch of information on different types of sugar, and the things that we don't like about added sugar is that the picture shows, like white sugar, brown sugar, high fructose corn syrup. It doesn't give you any nutritional benefit. It's what we would call empty calories. And eating too much, eating more than the recommendation is shown to lead to a lot of negative health impacts. And I will say that even this, they have some examples of what sugar might also be called. So, like I said, high fructose corn syrup, molasses, corn sweetener. There's so many names out there now, especially as we've come out. Even I forget the name is, but something like stevia. So that would be like a sugar substitute. There's a lot of those out there. So they might not have calories, but still, do we want to eat it in excess? No. So anyway, just a little pamphlet on added sugar. And 2 stapled packets in there if you want to flip through. The first one, which is primarily blue, talks about how to eat healthy on a budget. And it's got some really nice, colorful pictures in here. I love pictures. I like learning visually. So it kind of just says, how to make the most out of your meals, how to shop maybe a little smarter, getting the best bang for your buck. And this, probably my favorite picture out of this is on there's no page numbers, middle of the packet, and it's a little grid. It has different pictures of produce mostly, some dairy, and it says, how much it costs per portion, and also like what category it would be in. So this first column is talking about proteins. Then we have carbohydrates, vegetables, fats, fruits, flavor upgrades. So they have like onion and garlic in there. But that's the first packet. And the second packet is from the American Heart Association. And it's just talking about shopping smart, eating smart. It's got how many recipes? 16 heart healthy recipes. You can see the first page has a little it's broken out. So they have like breakfast, ingredient recipes, some snacks, seafood, meats, vegetarian, and the American Heart Association is obviously a really well-known resource that you can look to, in addition to the American Academy, or the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, excuse me. Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics is going to have recipes. They're going to have information mostly around nutrition and how to eat well. So if you've heard of registered dietitians, they would belong to that group. But that is it in our packet. Thank you for joining today. If you have any questions related to food, nutrition, cooking, or any other questions on any other topic, please reach out to the Community Health and Outreach Department at Good Shepherd. Myself and my coworkers and connections will be happy to help you. But enjoy the rest of your month and the upcoming holidays.